Hello everyone, my name is Justin and I have chosen to do an inquiry project for my final assignment. The inquiry question I have chosen is, how does identity influence who we will become? I've really been interested in the idea of identity, how it's formed, and why having a strong identity is important. I began my process with asking a bunch of questions related to my theme of identity. I used these questions to guide my research, using the answers to help me get a better understanding towards my main question. So before I started any research on how identity shapes who we are, I asked myself, what creates our identity? Through my research on trying to find what creates identity, I came across Erik Erikson's 8 stages of self-development. I used his theory as a foundation to start my research. So there are 8 stages of psychological development, but I will only be focusing on the first 5 stages since they are the ones that directly relate to my main question. So it all starts in stage 1, from when you are born until 15 months of age. In this stage, the infant either creates a sense of trust or mistrust on the world around them. This all depends on their caregiver. If they are there for them, the baby will feel safe and secure, and if they aren't there for them, they will feel anxious and unsure of their environment. The next few stages are very similar, so I just summed up these stages instead. So in these next 2 stages, the effect of school begins to come in play and have the similar effects as the first 2 stages. A child doesn't really have much control in shaping their own identity in these first 4 stages. This is kind of like the identity we're already born into. So then I wondered, when do we have the opportunity to shape our own identities? So this occurs in the stage 5, the teenage years. In this stage, the average teenager would ask himself, who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And through this stage, they try on different personas to see what really fits them and represents their true values and authentic self. Having success in the stage allows them to have a strong sense of self and finding their true identity. Failure in this stage may lead to a weak sense of self and role confusion. So going back to my main question on how identity shapes who we are, the teenage years play a very crucial role in helping us discover our true selves. So I wanted to learn more on why the teenage years are so important in shaping who we are. The reason why this stage is so important is because teens must learn how they want to express themselves in an authentic way to become more comfortable and secure in their own skin. It's also the best time to discover or to lose yourself. Since influences play a very strong role in this stage, it's crucial to surround yourself with positive people who bring out the best in you. Teenagers begin to form the identity that sticks with them for a lifetime. Everything is established at this time, most importantly, your relationships and how you view yourself. So after that, I wondered, what should I do if I'm struggling with my identity, and how improving our identities helps us become more confident in ourselves. If you're struggling with identity, this is just another obstacle to overcome to find the best version of yourself. So if you begin questioning who you are, it's the perfect opportunity to reconsider and question your values, beliefs, purpose, and sense of self. Overall, getting through an identity crisis will allow us to become more aware of who we are. So then I researched how building a strong identity helps with self-acceptance. To build a strong identity, it starts with understanding and staying true to your values and beliefs. Then you have to make your own decisions. Don't follow what everyone else is doing. Walk your own path, even if that means walking alone. Then after that, you have to spend time alone. The best way to get to know someone is by spending time with them. The same goes for spending time with yourself and understanding yourself better. Now going back to my main question, having a strong identity will allow us to make the right choices for ourselves and become more happy with the things we do. So now I will be talking about my process. And the first step of my process began with planning. So first I made a schedule outlining everything I wanted to learn, why I wanted to learn it, and how it relates to my inquiry question. I gave myself a due date for each section to learn so I could manage the workload and stay on top of my research. Something I could have improved upon is following the schedule more strictly. I got a bit lazy, which resulted in trying to cram all my research right before the due date. The next step of my process was to ask questions. I asked these questions to have a better idea of what I wanted to learn and which topics I needed to understand to have a better chance at answering my inquiry question. I began to think of smaller questions that would guide my research. Finding the answers to these questions allowed me to have a deeper understanding in all the aspects that revolved around my inquiry question. I believe this step of my process was very beneficial and helped a lot in trying to find the answers that ultimately helped me form opinion for my inquiry question. The next step of my process was the funnest part, the research portion. I had a very simple approach to my research. I would just Google the question I came up with in the previous step of my process and try to find the answer through trustworthy websites. I would then use this information to deepen my understanding of my overall topic and try to relate it to the main theme of understanding how identity influences us. How I would decide if a certain resource had legitimate information or not was also simple. I just stuck to well-known websites that focused on evidence rather than opinions, and websites that were written by a trustworthy author with solid credentials. I had found that this research process was efficient and worked well for me, although I believe I could have done a better job by using articles found on Google Scholar that may have been more credible. Overall, Google allowed me to find some very useful websites that worked well for me in the end. The final step of my process was to compile all the information. I compiled all of my research together and split them into the order of my presentation. I then used the sum of everything I learned to answer my main question. So how does identity influence who we become? Our identity influences every choice we make, and what creates our lifestyle starts from these choices. It is crucial to have a strong foundation of identity that you are happy with. It's not the end of the world if you have a weak sense of identity, although it may be the roots to your insecurities and could possibly negatively influence you. My weak sense of self in the past urged me to reconsider myself and my values and helped me spark my journey to greater self-discovery. Having a solid identity strongly influences our lives, helps us live more fulfilling lives, helps us create better connections with others, and ultimately allows us to be happy with who we are. So after completing all my research and answering my main question, a new question arose. Do we get to choose who we become, or does our environment influence that upon us? Since who we are is based off of our identity, and this identity starts from when we are kids, and when we are kids our identities are just a result of the characteristics we are born with and the influence of our environment, and these are all things we cannot choose or control. I then wondered if we had more control over shaping our identity, or if our environment had a stronger influence. I also thought about how hard it is to truly change one's identity, but in the end, I did not have time to fully answer these questions. Overall, I learned a lot from this project, from both my inquiry question and the process to find the answer for the question. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.